Hi, everyone. It's great to be back with you. I'm here today with my special friend, Dr. Arlene Taylor. You guys have met her as the brain specialist, and she is that, but she's so much more than that. That's just one aspect of her awesomeness. So I'm delighted to just chat with her anytime I get the opportunity. And today we're going to chat about don't leave your brain in the dust. Staying hydrated is a must. Everybody knows, we all know that staying hydrated is really important, but most of us are not aware just how much our brain and body suffer even from a little bit of dehydration. So Dr. Arlene, would you please just tell us about why our brain cells need to have more water inside them than outside of them? And what does a healthy, hydrated brain look like or feel like to a person?
You know, I don't think that people over the centuries even, they knew they needed water, but I don't think they had any concept of dehydration really, unless it was an extreme lost at sea or out in the desert, what that did to the brain. I mean, this is a fairly recent science reveal, I guess you'd say, as we have the capability of doing the MRIs and the other type of brain imaging that lets us see what really goes on in the brain.
Right.
So I went through nursing school, got my master's, got my doctorate. I never once heard the term dehydration, not even once.
Wow.
And this was not in the late 1800s. Just want to point that out. So let me give you a little schema here. Roughly, planet Earth is 25% solid matter and 75% liquid matter. You know, it varies a little. Some people say it's 70, some people say whatever, but it's roughly, 25%, 75%. To some degree, you can now translate that to the brain and body. The brain and body collectively is about 25% solids and about 75% liquid, with a couple of exceptions.
Okay.
And one of those are the actual neurons or thinking cells in the brain. And they're at least 85% water.
Wow.
So what does that mean? It means that when you become dehydrated, you change this ratio. And that can be a problem on planet Earth, when suddenly great vast areas become desert and other areas flood and so on. So it's a problem everywhere. But in the brain, as you become dehydrated, in these thinking cells that are 85% water, they begin to shrink. Now, water is required in the brain for almost every chemical process, and most of those are done inside the cell. So as the cell begins to lose water, these critical chemical processes like creating neurotransmitters and so on can be incompletely provided. And that can be a major problem in itself, but here's the bigger problem. As those cells shrink, naturally, the brain tissue glob itself begins to shrink. And as it shrinks, it pulls away from the skull.
Okay.
Bad news.
Bad news.
We now know that dehydration is linked with dementia.
Wow. It's literally a case of, the circles I was in used to talk about the damage of stinking thinking. When you had, bad things rolling around your head, what that did. This is shrinking thinking. Damage that you don't even know that you're doing to yourself, that you actually have control. It's not a disease process. It's not an accident that happens to you and you have no control. This is something we have control over.
In most countries, at least in ours.
Yes, right. Some people don't have access to clean or healthy or safe water, but largely we do.
Right.
No matter what our income level, we have access, to safe drinking water, and our tribe understands the benefits of Ion Thrive alkaline water and hydrogen water and things like that, the excellent filtration. But it's something we do have control over. Now tell me, I noticed in your notes that you sent me, you always send me notes ahead, thank you. You talked about like over 50, the signal to drink is not always there. What would be some effects that we would notice if we're starting to be dehydrated, that we would perhaps be unaware of, not just thirsty, not just waiting until we're thirsty?
Well, here's the problem. Yes, after about age 50, 55, the thirst trigger awareness begins to fall. But that's only part of the problem. Because many, many adults, Wendy, don't know the difference between hunger and thirst.
Wow.
Because when they were babies, their parents didn't know the difference between hunger and thirst. So the baby gets fussy, and instead of taking a bottle of wonderful water and giving them a drink and see if that resolves the fussiness, because irritability is one of the very first things that happens.
Right.
They give them a bottle of milk or some food. And so that little brain learns to eat for both thirst and hunger. And that really does a number on us in adulthood, because even if we're not 50 yet, many people honestly don't know the difference.
Yeah. And, I raised 3 children and had multiple, nieces and nephews and friends. I don't think I ever offered water in a bottle to any child.
I didn't.
I never offered water in a bottle to anyone. Even I would, as they were older, I remember giving them watered down apple juice or something. It never occurred to me one time, and no pediatrician or mama or grandmama ever said, have you tried giving the baby water?
I rest my case for all of us.
Yeah.
You only know what you know, Wendy.
You only know what you know, and what a benefit. When you know better, you can do better. So like, that is just excellent to think of.
Because of this, I've had to stop drinking to thirst. If I get thirsty, I'm embarrassed.
Yeah.
I want to drink enough water so that I do not get thirsty. And so that depends on a lot of things. It depends on the weather, the humidity, how I'm dressed, how active I'm doing,
Right.
what I'm doing. So the current wisdom from several physicians that I've talked to is, forget about drinking to thirst. If you get thirsty, you already know that you're dehydrated.
Right.
Because you're dehydrated way before you have a sense of thirst, even if it's still working.
Right.
So what I do is I drink to have at least one very pale urine a day. And some people say, well, I never have pale urines because I'm taking medication. Well, then you're going to have to be really, really careful.
Right.
You're going to have to maybe put a checklist up there and make sure that you drink, a minimum of a liter and a half of water regularly. And if it's very hot, maybe 2 liters.
Right.
So that's what I do, because the old thing is all you need is 8 glasses of water a day. It really doesn't match the science.
Right. As everything else with that food pyramid they gave us, if you follow that food pyramid, you are going to be fat and sluggish.
So you don't even see water on the food pyramid.
Don't even see water on the food pyramid. Exactly. So yeah. So ladies and gentlemen, it's just important. It's important to your ability, your cognitive processes, to your ability to think clearly and function well. Even your attitude. We heard here, irritability is one of the first things that happens when you're dehydrated. We don't think about it. So I just want to remind all of the Impacts World family how important hydration is. It's much more important than anyone gives credit for. So thank you, Dr. Arlene, for sharing that with us. Family, make sure she has so many amazing articles. I didn't even realize. I went recently to her website. There is a book's worth of more than one book's worth of articles on Dr. Arlene Taylor's website that you can just dive into. And they're not written like scientific medical studies. She writes them anecdotally. You feel you're in a story. It makes sense. It's conversational. They're brilliant. They're a great resource. So make sure you go check out drarlenetaylor.org, check out all her blogs. Make sure you go to impactsworld.com, Ion Thrive. Thank you, family. Stay hydrated. God bless.